Welcome back to the world of Kingdom Valley, where we're continuing our tour with the Kaibaran culture, a part of my empire, starting at the village of Cher Raam and ending in Old Inlet. And just like last time, stay tuned till the end of the video for an elytra tour of the whole area. Now, let's get right into it. We've discussed Cher Raam in a few videos before, so we'll keep this village brief. This village was floating in the air, so I kept it that way, taking inspiration from Earthbound, using the pink cloud as the means of keeping the village afloat. Not sure if the llama is actually floating, but it works for me, and it also reminds me of a teen superhero movie with a floating school. I can't remember what it was called, but regardless, I also have the pink cloud as a sanctuary location. Well, we can then move on from Cher Raam to Moose Bay, which we can reach via boat. Moose Bay's design was specifically requested by a player on my senior project team, who was named Jessie, using cherry, birch, and deep slate as the primary building blocks. And I, wanting the village to remain a part of my Kaibaran sphere, I knew I'd also need to include copper in some way, so I chose to make it copper roofs, and all of this adds to a unique style that isn't really found anywhere else in my Minecraft world. And the predominant structure, and structures, I suppose, of this village are the Pillars of Protection. Name taken from Pokemon Black and White. You might know them as the Victini movies, but I suppose Reshiram or Zekrom, depending on which one you watched. Personally, me, I think Ash is probably better ending up with Reshiram, but that's just me. Anyway, continuing. These specific structures are represented by a god of this Minecraft world's religion, Foxalor, Zolorek, and Drodin, to keep the village protected. And leaving Moose Bay, we'll go past a bridge that is headed towards Jessie's Outpost. And mainly an iron farm with a few chests and a bed, I decided that I'd come back to this region and spruce it up a little bit. I transformed the iron farm into a little bit more of a nicer house, masking the iron farm totally behind the house. It just looks like a really tall house, and there's some assorted structures that are other kind of farms. And the iron roofs, they still evoke an industrial production-like feel, but they also hide the fact that there's, I don't want just farms sitting out in the wide open. There also happened to be another structure in this region that was I think it was a villager breeder. It was a really tall eyesore you could see all the way from the other village, so I just got rid of it. And I don't think a villager breeder is probably the most necessary thing for my Minecraft world, because I have a ton of villages. If I really need more villagers, it's not too hard to get more. So moving past Jessie's Outpost, well, there's Port Januenay. And this is a village that Jessie actually abducted all the villagers to create the iron farm, but I happened to repopulate it so that I could actually preserve the village. There was a plan in the past to potentially totally get rid of this village and bring the river that connects all the way to the ocean all the way into the interior of the continent, but I figured it would just be better to bring the village out. So instead, what I did was, you walk through the main village that actually generated, and then as you go through a southern path, or if you just decide to go through the river on a boat, you'll end up in the port portion of the village. And, well, at the actual port, there's a standard lighthouse that I think everyone pretty much builds in their Minecraft world, at least one of, and it's always fun to run up spiral staircases. I think that goes without saying. That's why I like to build them. That's why this isn't the only lighthouse. This isn't even the only spiral staircase in my Minecraft world. I don't exclude that to lighthouses, but aside from the lighthouse, the bridge into the village is really nice. It's a nice cherry bridge that has enough of a lift up that you can actually get a boat underneath. And, well, going back to Jessie's Outpost, we'll have to nether travel to get to the rest of the locations that we'd like to tour in this video. So, getting to Eagle's Gully, which is what we're going to go to first, it's the first village I improved after my senior project team, settled in this region of the world. And its scale matches that. Home to the Lilliput Steps, another Earthbound sanctuary location, Eagle's Gully is an important cultural site for the Kaibaran. and certainly the largest Kaibaran village of any of the remaining ones that exist. So, pretty predominant location. And walking outside of the walls of the village, past the exterior village, so all of the other structures we'll see, we'll reach JP's outpost. And he left his house, well, in a bit of an unfinished and abandoned state. So I came back to this region of the world and, well, I finished what he left off. There was a house, and I'm not sure if he had started a guest house, but there was some other structure, so I decided to turn it into a guest house. And, well, I made sure it was connected to the village nearby, but I also wanted to make sure that I didn't just take JP's existing structure and totally radically change it. One of my favorite things about Minecraft is when you play a multiplayer server, especially if you have people who potentially leave the server at some point. If you're a person who plays a lot and you're not certain if those people will ever come back, finishing up their projects and their structures is a way to force yourself to incorporate different kind of design ideas than maybe you would be willing to do with your builds. Because if you're doing it right, or if you're doing it with the specific way that I did, I really wanted to preserve JP's build style, so I just finished his house as is, copying exactly what he'd done. And, well, it's a lot more distinct than any of the houses I've built in my Minecraft world. I actually kind of like the birch trapdoor, and I've always used fences for a lattice kind of window. I've always loved that. But using trapdoors as kind of like shutters is, of course, I think an idea that a lot of people have used, but is also really nice design. And I don't think I've done that for a lot of my builds. So I might have to consider that when I build my next house. But moving on from JP's outpost, well, let's head to Kaibara Ridge, the origin of the Kaibaran culture. Well, the village itself hosts a museum, and the base I built here was actually 100% inspired by a base I saw in my dreams. And, well, past the ruins of the old village, we'll find its excavated trail ruin. The full history we'll probably cover another time, but next to the trail ruin is also the Rainy Circle, which is a third sanctuary location for the Kaibaran culture. And, well, lastly, we'll end in Old Inlet. We recently discussed my base, so we'll go past it, but instead focus on Dradin's Pagoda, a tower to honor the deer god. Well, not sure what the inspiration was for this build, but I do know that I wanted to make some more Elytra launch towers around my world, and I wanted to make something a little bit more unique. It also kind of reminds me of maybe the Pagoda Tower from, I think the name was SimCity Creator DS. I want to make sure I get it right. That was the game. I've done a Let's Play of that in the past. But moving on, well, the other important site for this village is the Snowman's Tomb, which is, a curiosity. I suppose I mentioned those before. It's just a little simple site that has something more interesting to it, but isn't necessarily a really large build. So there's a bunch of snowmen over here, and one of them is a little bit different than the others, and it's a reference to a game I've played in the past. I still play Mabinogi, and I do think that if you're including these kind of references to unique things in your Minecraft world, everything's just a lot more interesting. So as we come to a close, we'll wrap up with an Elytra tour. As we fly over the Kaibaran King Rain culture, I hope that ultimately for your Minecraft world, you'll consider connecting all of your structures together, which just makes aerial flyovers a lot more breathtaking as you see everything that you've built and how it's progressed. And as we conclude our tour of the Kaibaran culture and Kaibaran villages, we'll be moving next into the Attatori Sud region of the world, which means we'll be taking a look at a lot more developed parts of the world that are much older. So I hope you'll stay tuned, and I hope you enjoyed this one. See you next time.